Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Detour Live. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks again for all your support. And keep liking, sharing, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Detour Podcast. We do appreciate it. I'm joined as always by four-time national road champion Johnny Trevorrow. And Johnny, it feels like we've gone into this episode like a couple of rat bag students that have finally done their homework because we've pre-recorded all the interviews for the first time, I think, ever on one of these shows.
Yeah, we try not to do that because we know our loyal followers love to ask questions and that. So we would try and do that, but for different reasons, we had to pre-record this one, and I was rapt to do it with one of my really good mates from the early days, great rivals. We're probably better mates now than when we raced against each other, although we always got on very well. In Don Allan, and we'll talk to him shortly, but a legend of the bike game, one of the best all-round cyclists we've ever produced, world class on the track, especially as a six-day rider, and first Australian to win a stage in the Vuelta. So we do it with Donny, which I'm really looking forward to.
Well, that didn't come across in the interview. Did you used to butt heads?
No, not really. His brother and I butted heads, and you know how they're all doing these fist bumps at the end. Now we used to do fist bumps, get off the bike and do the fist bumps. His brother and I. But Donny and I, we were great rivals, but we got on fine. But we closer mates now, which is fantastic. He's a legend. Yeah.
Bury the hatchet. Before we do we also caught up with Matt White. He's at the Tour of Spain for a couple of days, and before we show that interview, great stage overnight, Iffy. Primoz Roglic comes back, wins it, and our man Magnus Cort, geez, he's almost pulled it off again.
That was the ride of the stage. Great for Roglic to win. You know, he was probably the red hot favourite once they got close at the bottom. But Magnus, this was even better than his ride the other day, which was amazing, but so similar. It was almost like a carbon copy in the break all day, and then rides away from the break, and then just defies them to run like they caught him 200 metres to go on a monster final climb. It was so steep, and it was just amazing. It just blew me away. Not enough superlatives. BikeExchange did a great job trying to get Michael into the mix, but it was just too hard for Michael. It was really a GC riders finale. Hopefully better for Michael tonight.
Well, talking to Michael Matthews, we asked Matthew White a few questions around how he's travelling. So here's the interview we did with Matt White earlier today. Sport Director Matt White, flying visit to the Vuelta, mate, and we're just crossing our fingers that the Wi-Fi doesn't cut out. How is it there? It's bloody hot out here.
Very, very warm. We are in deep, dark Andalusia, down south of Spain here, and we're looking at temperatures up to 38 degrees today. So it's going to be a warm one, a fast one, and probably a day for the breakaway, I would think.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Looking for Michael Matthews, he's got 2 or 3 opportunities left, but this is one of them if he gets in the break, because it's pretty solid towards the end. But if he was in a breakaway, he's just the type of rider to handle that. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think after the problem here is there's not too many riders similar to Michael here, so there's not too many teams with similar interests. So we've got obviously. There's some world-class sprinters here, and they've got a day coming up tomorrow. Today's too hard for them. And then yesterday was a sort of a crossover day, just on the borderline for being too hard for Michael. And as you saw, it was the GC guys ended up battling it out yesterday. But there's not many guys here who that sort of climber who are fast. And so I don't think we would get a lot of help today if we wanted to control it. And it's a relatively flat first or 2/3 of the race, and then in the final of the race, you've got a Category 3, then a Category 2. And we've used this final many times before on the run into Cordova, and it's solid enough, but the best chance for us to win today would definitely be out of a big breakaway with Michael inside.
Yeah. And the same, Nick Schultz did a really good job the other day too. He got in the break, and the one that young Michael Storer won, but he was really strong in there. Just tactics didn't work out in the end, and he missed the right move. But he did look good.
Yeah, look, he'll be the perfect companion for Michael in the breakaway today, and we'll take it pretty aggressively from the start to make sure we're in it, because tomorrow will be a relatively easy day for the guys, and then we go back into some really, really tough mountain stages on the weekend and next week. But first things first, they'll be infiltrating the break today, because I think Wanty, who are in the jersey, probably for 1 or 2 days maximum more, they're just happy to make sure that they keep the jersey, which is pretty easy at the moment because there's only probably 10 guys within 6 or 7 minutes on the general classification front. And then it's not a day for Roger. I like Roger's attitude. Like, it's certainly not textbook GC racing. They lost the jersey. They gave the jersey away, Jumbo Visma, but he wanted to win yesterday's stage, and instead he could have given his guys a couple of days easy until the weekend, but no, he wanted to chase that win yesterday, and very impressive ride. But it's not typically how the GC guys will ride, especially in the middle week of a Grand Tour. But he looks pretty untouchable at the moment here.
Well, we did have we had the free ranger saying, hey, you got to ask Whitey about the tactics from a couple of days ago when Roglic was taking those risks on the descent, and he's come back to the car and they said, there must have been some orders. I mean, what were you thinking when you saw those tactics a couple of days ago?
Yeah, like he just turns the textbook upside down. Like, there was probably no need. He just felt good out of the rest day and thought, I might just stick it to him today. But that could have ended pretty badly for him. You saw how he crashed. That barricade was a little bit closer to the edge of the road, or he put his wrist down in an awkward way. He could have broken his wrist, his collarbone. Who knows how he'd slid into that barricade, and his welter would have been over. But he's a confident, aggressive rider, and I can't not like the way he races. But there is a degree of risk involved in that for sure. But he's one tough cookie. Like, he's had some obstacles and some bad luck this year, and just carries on. Paris-Nice, he crashed the last day in the jersey, lost Paris-Nice because of that. Next race goes and wins Pays Basque. Tour de France, crashes out of the Tour de France as one of the big favourites, goes and wins Olympic gold medal, and carries on, gets on with it, and he's a real racer.
He certainly is.
How important is that as a DS to sort of work with the natural personality of a rider and not to try and change too much and try and find that sort of balance?
Yeah, it is all about finding balance, that's for sure, because some of the big champions as well, some of them don't have a real good perception of what their teammates are going through. And so they might be up and about and feeling great, but they're not probably. Some of them struggle to feel how they've got to get their teammates through 21 days of racing, because they might be the strongest guy in the bike race, but at the end of the day, they need the support of those guys to get through controlling stages after stages, the back end of the race. So it is definitely about finding a balance between the strengths of your leader and how much your team can tolerate, or the best way for them to support their leader over the 3-week journey.
I'm just going to say, looking at last night's stage, BikeExchange did a really good job. They invested in Michael. They did everything right, and as you said, it was just ended up being just that fraction too hard. It was a GC riders day. What a monster! But listen, what about Magnus Court? You used to be his DS.
Magnus.
Magnus. But stage he won the other day was amazing, and this was just as amazing. The way he went away from the break. He's been out there all day, and they only caught him 200 metres to go. It was an absolutely phenomenal ride.
Yeah, Maggie's on a very rich vein of form at the moment, and it's a hard way to win out of those breakaways, because Magnus is a rider similar to Michael, so can climb well and is fast. And I saw the statistics yesterday. So that Category 2 climb at the finish, that was an 18.5-minute climb, and he only went up there 13 or 14 seconds slower than the bunch. So we had the whole bunch arrived at the bottom of that Cat 2. 40 guys arrived at the top, and Magnus he had a 50-second lead at the bottom and still had 20 seconds at the top. So no, he's got great form, and I think he's building well to finish off the season for the World Championships as well. He'd be a big favourite, I reckon.
I was just going to say, Michael Matthews would have to be a really big favourite for that World Championship too. It's sort of his type of course.
Yeah, and because of the Olympic Games, and because Magnus and Michael missed out, there's usually the Vuelta is a very good place to prepare for the World Championship, especially on tough courses, which we have got this year. But because of the Olympics, a lot of those guys went to the Olympics, and it was just too much to do the Tour, the Olympics, the Vuelta, and carry on. So Magnus and Michael are the two guys here who will go into the Olympics with very good shape, I think. Whereas your Van der Poels, your Van Aerts, your other big favourites have had to have a rest after the Olympics, because they've carried their form on. Whereas the guys who missed the Olympics have been able to recover after the Tour de France, and it's going to be a very interesting World Championships this year.
That was part one of our chat with Matt White. He's part two. You were talking earlier about the management of riders. I mean, how is Bling holding up? Because, I mean, it must be frustrating at times when, you do so much work in the prep. You're so used to breaking through and having these wins. How hard is it to try and keep them focused and keep the morale up when, throughout the race, it's just things just haven't panned out?
Yeah, look, he's in a good place. He's doing his best. We know he's working really hard. He's been consistent all year. And the one thing we can't control is one is the courses.
Mm-hmm.
The courses here at the Vuelta have just been either too easy, so they've been pure sprint stages, which there's always faster guys than him on those pure bunch sprint stages, or they've just been that little bit too hard and been more on the GC front. So we can't control the courses, but what we can control is the process of going about trying to get these wins and position him and as best as we can, and we'll continue that today and adapting to the circumstances. But he's in a good place, mate. His morale's good, and he's still chasing wins.
And the other thing was, how important is it to stay consistent with that plan? Because there are a lot of people saying, oh, they're going to mix it up now. Are they going to, some of the sprints, go with Luca or whatever? How important is it to go, no, we've come in with this plan, we're sticking to it?
Yeah, I think what we've been able to do this year, Luca and Michael the first time they rode together was the Tour, and I think the relationship worked really well. But we may mix it up tomorrow. Who knows? But the process we've been going through is building that relationship and trust there between the two has been going well. There's been a couple of faster guys than us here at the Vuelta and at the Tour as well. But I think the sprints could open up. Philipsen didn't start yesterday, so it leaves for the tomorrow stage, for example, going to be a lot of responsibility on Quickstep and probably DSM with a young Italian there, Danese. So it'd be interesting. There's 2 sprint stages left only, and maybe we might change it up for Luca for tomorrow. We'll see. But I think the process has gone well this year, and what we think with those two, especially with Luca and Michael. But one day at a time.
Given the season and given the relationship that Luca does have with Michael, if there was a change of tactics, Michael would be able to understand that role of, okay, well, if I have to support Luca, all chips in.
Yeah, he would. They're tight, and I think Michael understands that Luca's sacrificed a lot for him this year, and I think he'd be more than willing to return the favour.
The one question that Dan normally asks you, I'll whack it in. What's the food like around this area? You're talking about being hot, but how hot's the food? Well,
they're very much meat-based. Had some good hamons the last couple of days. But I'm in a hotel now, which I think if you transported me back to about 1996 would be. I don't think not too much has changed since then. The air conditioning was on all night. I think we got down to about 25 degrees. So it's a very hot part of Spain, especially in the middle of August. It's a warm one, but the food's been okay. Nothing like Italy, that's for sure. But no complaints.
Mate, I miss those pigs that ate those acorns. That ham, the real expensive stuff. That is the ducks. That is so good.
Yeah. You get if you're a hamon fan, this is the right part of the world to be in.
That was on one of the special cooking shows just a few days ago. And they had like about 1,000 lumps of ham hanging up in the roof, and one of them was worth about £3,000 that sold for in London. One leg.
That'd be the acorn pig. That's
Yeah, Best Leghorn pigs. That's the ones.
Yep. Fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah, very good ones. You can't get a lot of the good ones out in Australia, can you?
Nah, but we'll still eat them. We'll just take whatever we can get, mate. Oh, well, thanks for being on the detour again, Whitey. Hopefully it's a good result today and they can get in the break, and we'll be watching tomorrow with keen interest to see how it pans out for you guys again.
All right. Thanks, gents.
Going,
Thanks,
Whitey.
Matty.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Always good to chat to Whitey, and good to add in the colour at the end there, Johnny, about the food.
Well, yeah, it's normally your role, but
I forgot all about
it. Slip by, so that's fine.
Yeah.
We haven't had him on since the Tour de France, so there you go.
Yep.
Good to get him
A couple of quick comments. Gary Tilley, bloody hell, 6:30, right on the button. And Wendy Superfan.
What would you expect, Gary? Come on.
Alan, the skull, bone-in pork, not allowed past customs. Oh, well, there you go. That's why we don't get it. So we need to work on that skull. All right, well, we'll take a quick drinks break with words from our partners, BikeExchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. BikeExchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for zero cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate, and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Thanks again to BikeExchange, and as we always say, great messages there from the Amy Gillett Foundation. And Jason Cruz from the Maldives, the man behind the generous donation from the Miller Resorts, he says it's Iberico-Iberian ham. That's the one we're thinking of.
It is the one. Sensational. Very thin little slices. Amazing.
Now, we're going to show the interview with Don Allan, and it's in 5 parts. So I thought instead of every time I show a part, because on this software, we can only show up to 10 minutes. So you don't want to hear, okay, that's part 1, on to part 2. I'm going to put up a photo of Don, which is the famous stage victory there at the Vuelta. And every time it goes to the next part, you'll see this photo, but I'll click it straight in so you don't have to hear us waffling on in between. And after that, there has been another bid for the silent auction. We're going to have an update for the custom clothing for the Detour delegates. But before we do all that, let's have a listen to the interview we did with the great Don Allan earlier today.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, well, our special guest today is someone who I grew up racing with young juvenile delinquents, as we used to call ourselves back then, and someone I'm privileged to be able to call a mate, Don Allan, one of our greatest cyclists, track and road, one of our great all-round cyclists. So, Donnie, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. I'm well. Yeah. For an old bloke.
Now, I rang you this morning and you were just heading off on your bike. As you said, you only go 5K from home. But how many circuits did you do around home? How many Ks
No,
did you?
2 hour circuit. That's enough nowadays. I try and get out 3 times a week. So.
Same as me, but I can only do 1 hour.
Don, I've done a bit of research. Obviously, I don't know you as well as John, but the research into your career and your story is remarkable. Particularly, we often talk about on this show, you know, a lot of the world are going through tough times. We need to sort of find ways to build mental resilience. But your story, particularly in the early days when you had a car accident and there was a point there where most people go, well, that's it. You know, your career's going to be finished. What I want to start off by asking you is how did you get through a moment in 1970 where you had a crash, looked like your career could have been over, but you ended up getting through that and riding in the 72 Olympics? How did you persevere through that tough period of your life in those early days?
It was tough. I had to change my style of riding considerably. A lot of things I couldn't do as good as I could before the accident, climbing and tempo riding on my own on the road. But I was pretty determined, and my good people around me, Barry Waddell and Keith Reynolds and Doc Toyne. So just a lot of persistence. I nearly threw it in a couple of times, but just kept pushing at it. And I was doing that many miles that something had to happen.
And when you say that they were great support, was it their ability just to egg you on and keep you focused?
Yeah, it was. Remember when I was training, John Younger trained me when I was young, and I was doing a lot of miles, 350 miles in those days a week and working. And after the accident, Barry Waddell started to look after me. We were doing he set a program with a lot of kilometres and a lot of miles, and it still wasn't happening. And I'd go to him and say, he'd say, how is it? I'd say, no, nothing's happening. We'll have to do more miles, he said. Oh, shit. So I didn't ask that again. And the same with Keith. Every time he'd rub me, there was a big hole in my buttock and the right leg had withered. And I kept saying, it's not going too good, Keith. And he'd dig harder in the muscle. So I never asked him again either. I never complained. Just a matter of persevering.
Well, Johnny, this is contradicting your recent theory, which is, you know, listen to your body, pull back. Sometimes you've got to take Don Allan's approach and go a bit harder, do some more Ks, iffy.
Yeah, well, I never tried quite as hard as Don, and that's why I was never had as much success as Don either. But it's funny you talk about that. So, yes, Don and I were teammates at that Munich Olympics, which was a strange time. But one of the big testing things for you, Donnie, was that you shared a room with me and our beds were only a couple of feet apart. How'd you handle that, mate?
That was difficult. That was more difficult than the comeback. I'm a neat and tidy freak, as you know, and you're quite the opposite. So it was difficult at times.
I've heard a lot of legendary stories about Iffy at those 72 Olympics. The majority of them true. I mean, you're someone that obviously was focused. You know, you're probably a lot more disciplined. And rooming with a guy that was a bit of a scallywag. I mean, how difficult was that?
And I could be a scallywag too. So
he wasn't Mr. Perfect, I can tell you. You painted this saint Don Allan. No. A couple of things the trouble I got into. He was right here as my wingman, I can tell you. But
did you adhere to the rules about not going to that bar in the athletes' village, Don?
No.
So there you go. But you never got. He's smarter than me. He never got caught. I got caught twice.
Well, what was that experience like riding in your first Olympics, particularly coming off the back of having a period where you thought, geez, my career might be over before it started?
Yeah, it's fantastic. In those days, there was a hell of a difference between the amateur cycling and professional. Night and day difference, black and white, really. But as part of you growing up in your career, I think it would have been very disappointed not to have gone to Olympics. But it wasn't until we got over there and turned pro and realised that the amateurs were far lower, less quality than the pros. But yeah, it was great experience. Summer, arriving in Munich, a beautiful town. The girls looked good, and yeah, it was just a great experience.
I remember, Donnie, being woken up. It was the morning that we thought we were going to be racing. So we've gone to bed expecting to wake up and ride in the Olympic Games. But that was the night that the terrorist attack happened. And I remember Charlie Mennons, our manager, came in and woke us up to tell us, take it easy, boys. It's all been put on hold. What are your memories of that, Donnie?
Yeah, I can remember it was the day before our event, and it was quite upsetting. Luckily, we didn't hear anything, any of the gunfire or anything like that. But I remember the race was postponed, our road race, for a few days. And after that, there were guards all around the village and carrying machine guns and all that. So, yeah, it was quite disturbing.
Now, I was going to lead straight into the next year, 73, which we had an amazing year together. But I thought, since we are talking about the Vuelta, and we'll get to how you got in to become a pro racing. But can you take us through that Vuelta that you rode and you become the first Australian to win a stage? Because it's an amazing honour, which, you said, I remember you saying off air, back then it didn't mean a lot to people in Australia, but now, of course, it does. But just take us through the actual stage win and the lead up to that.
Friesel was down to, we had 10 men in the team, like all the teams, and we're down to 4 men, Henny Kuiper, myself, Jose de Cauer, and Willie Van Ester. And the others had pulled out or fallen. I think Teo Smith won a stage early in the tours. So Friesel did well in stage races, especially with Teo. And the night before the stage into Bilbao, we're sitting at the table, the 4 riders. The owner of the team, Nico de Vries, he was an oil importer, oil broker. He used to buy and sell oil in the ships while they were out at sea. Pete Liebrechts was our director sporting for the famous Soigneur. He used to work with Peter Post and managed a lot of Dutch teams. And we had a mechanic in Soigneur. And de Vries, the owner of the team, said, tomorrow's finishing on a cinder track. He said, Don, you're an expert on cinder track finishes. I said, oh, no, I'm not. I said, I did win a stage in the peace race, cinder track. I beat Likachev and Sikorsky. He said, I've heard about that. He said, you're the man. Tomorrow, everyone's got to work for you. So I'm not used to that sort of role. I'm the one normally leading people out. And coming into Bilbao, I then went home, back to the room, studied you get a program. I got the program from 1976. So you get a book like that, and it's got the profiles, stage finishes and all that in it. So I studied that, and I saw that there was a lap of the track, 400 metres, and there were 2 sharp corners coming up to it. And I thought, if I can attack into that second last corner, put a bit of distance into Basso, who won 6 stages that tour, he was lightning fast, faster than you, Iffy. I kind of beat Robbie McEwen, I suppose, or Cavendish in a sprint. A normal sprint, you couldn't beat him. So there was a climb, I think, a second category climb, not far from the finish, and a few of us got dropped off, or quite a lot of us got dropped off the back. And the Friesel boys came back and working, got me up, and we passing the bunch. And I can remember a few of the riders, those men just smiling and smirking. What are they up to? 2 Belgians, a Dutchman and a kangaroo. So Henny said to me, how do you want us to play this? What do you want us to do? And I said, well, my only chance to beat Basso is to attack him before the track and come in front. If I can hold him off, that's the only way to beat him. So there they are going at the front, and I was on 4th wheel. And then Henny took over the last bit, and you got to know how good a bike rider Henny was. 2 months later, he won the World Professional Championship. Milan San Remo, Paris-Roubaix, fantastic rider. So here's Henny going flat out. And I saw the corner, second last corner, and attacked into it, put some distance into them. And then there was another corner, I put some more distance into him and came on the track. And I think we had about 400 metres anyway on the track. And I just held Basso off. Just.
Yeah, you beat him, mate. You beat him. And Basso was also a world road champion, so he was a pretty handy bike rider, wasn't he?
Yeah. And that third wheel is Tamaminus. He ended up winning the Tour. And on the right there is Peruina. He's quite a good road sprinter. Very good.
What was the
probably came in with about 10 lengths on them and just held off.
What was the celebrations like, and what was the feeling like when you pulled it off?
Yeah, they were pretty happy that night. We didn't get into the grog too much. The next day, Henny Kuiper ended up winning. So it was pretty good. The team boss was pretty happy. Down to 4 men, and we got 2 stages. So one after another.
Henny finished top 10, didn't he? He finished 5th or 6th in
that.
Fifth, yeah, for Vuelta. So he's a classy bike rider and a fantastic guy. I mean, he won the gold medal in the Olympics that we rode, won it alone, and our teammate Clyde got the silver medal, which was a fantastic effort. I still hold you to blame for the punch up that Clyde and I had in Munich, because you were stirring it up. We got back. We'd been out that night. We'd all had a couple, and we get back into the room, and we had 3 of us shared one room. It was Donnie, myself, and Graham Jost, a real character, South Australian, who tragically was killed in a race that Donnie and I were riding in Tour of Austria the next year. But we were there, and then there was a little room just off it, which was Clyde's room. That was the 4 road riders. And I can't remember, you and JC were stirring us up because Clyde had been an ex Golden Gloves boxer, and I reckon I was a more boy, could handle myself. So I ended up having a punch up, and you were swirling along, hitting me with suitcases while we were rolling around the ground. And I remember it was a glass beside the door. You hit that with the suitcase, and so there was broken glass on the ground and all of that. So that was all the blood and guts that came about. But anyway, I won the fight, and Clyde and I have been friends ever since. So there you go. I blame you for that, though, Donnie.
Yeah, doesn't sound like something I do, but anyway.
You're talking about the differences with obviously pro riders now, and it would have been so different back in those days. I've read something interesting about your 1974 Tour de France, and it says Don's breakfast before each stage was a big juicy steak and fed jam rolls on the bike and filet mignon each night, literally riding with the Lantern Rouge in his hand until the last stages. And you were shafted by Lorenzo Alamo, who took the honour by hiding beside the road for Don to pass by. And there was obviously the big post-tour crits, cash, if you got the Lantern Rouge. Were you filthy you didn't finish dead last in the 74 Tour de France?
No, that's a bit wrong. It wasn't Alamo. He was a teammate. It was a French rider called Boulas. Okay. And he got off and hid in the bushes. I was running last, and I wasn't happy being last. The team boss wanted me to finish last. I get a lot of publicity. But I wasn't happy anyway. He hid in the bushes for 10 minutes and he stitched up last place. That night they had champagne on his table and they were celebrating. They were wrapped.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. But you're talking about steak, and that in those days that we were told that's you had to eat steak and in the morning and meat all the time. So they've obviously progressed a lot with their diet and knowledge now. So
I'll go back to, so we rode the Olympics in 72, and then we came home and we went to Tassie, the Tour of Tasmania, which was I think that was the year, it was the 5-day tour right around Tassie, and you won that from Remo Sansnetti, and I ran 3rd. And from that, they picked a team to go over to the Tour of Mexico. So it was Donnie, myself, Clyde Sefton, so 3 of the Olympic team, and Jeff Leslie, Donnie Wilson.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the team. And old, what was his name? Dwyer.
Dwyer.
Yeah, Mike O'Dwyer. That's right. Poor bugger, we fixed him up. But you and I both got eliminated, and Clyde, on the first and second days. It was high altitude, we weren't ready. And then we heard that Eddie Merckx was going to break the hour record, which was huge back in those days. So we were at the wrong end of Mexico. And so we went right across Mexico to get to Mexico City. So you, me, Clyde Sefton, and Mike Neal, the American.
That's right.
Ended up being a good pro. I don't want to talk about. I want you to talk about your memories of that trip of getting across Mexico.
Yeah, Mike O'Grady wasn't keen to let us go, but
did we tell him? I think we went and left a note.
Yeah, we probably weren't supposed to leave the team, but the four of us went on. I think we trained it or something in buses, and I just really wanted to see Max do that record. I can remember Jock Oncotil in the grandstand, and I think I've got some film of it somewhere. And Colnago was there with his bike, and they had Ollie Ritter's had the record before that, and I remember on the big scoreboard it had record Ollie Ritter, and every time Merckx would lower it, they just say new record. And then we went in the press room after it. We pretended we were Australian press. I remember that.
Held up our driver's licenses, press cards.
Yeah, bike license.
Yeah, bike license.
And didn't you smash into Eddie Merckx after he'd finished the record?
I didn't smash into him, but we jumped the fence and we were almost the first to him. You know, Eddie's just got off, and a few officials. We were right there, and then the crowd come in behind us to push us. And I had a little home movie camera that I got off Mike Neal. I think I won it off Mike Neal on a card game the day before or something. But anyway, I hit Eddie in the head with the camera. And when I relayed that story years later, Eddie started rubbing his head and saying, I remember that. But it was fascinating that you ended up racing 6 days against Eddie and the great Patrick Secu, and become very close mates with Eddie, so it's a wonderful story.
And he told people that I used to hurt him. So how about that?
Well, we both did. I hurt him in the head, and you hurt him in the legs. So there you go.
Yeah. Someone said, "Did he hurt you much on the road, Eddie?" He said, "No, not so much on the road." But, it hurt him in the sixes, so that was all right.
You're talking. I was just going to say, you're talking earlier about at the time when you won that stage of the Vuelta, it didn't feel like it meant as much, particularly in Australia. Does it mean a lot more now that people do recognise, to be the first to do something like that?
Yeah, it does now. I'm not bitter about the publicity we got. I'm disappointed. The saturation that AFL gets is, in my opinion, terrible. We're over there competing in a world sport, best in the world, and the publicity was negligent in those days. I can remember riding a Tour de France, I forget which one, and I dropped back to the car to get bottles for someone, and coming back, and there were two directors. There was Leviton and Jacques Godet. The old bloke was last, and he was in the Aspro car, and he said, "Mr. Allan, come here." So I put along the car, and he introduced me to so-and-so Nicholas, one of the Nicholas family, who invented Aspro. They used to have a factory in Warrigal Road in Melbourne, and they set up a big company in Switzerland. And we were talking in the car, and he said, "I'll catch up with you at the finish." And he said, "I can't believe you're not getting any publicity at home in Melbourne or in Australia." He said, "I'll get my team onto it." And the next morning he was there again, and he said, "I found out what happens." He said, "The publicity does go there. It goes on a big wheel, but they spit it out in Australia." He said, "They just refused or didn't want to take it out there." So that's what happens. The results were getting there, but I suppose if an AFL footballer broke his toe, that was far more important than someone riding a tour. So that's the way it was back then.
Mm. So I'm going to touch on 1973, which was an amazing year. When I think back on my life, it's one of the highlights that are just so special. So Ron Webb, who was an expat Aussie, and I know I've told the story before on the detour, but who lived in London, ex-champion bike rider himself, invited Australian cycling to send some road riders over, and he would organise a season for them. So it was Donnie, myself, and Clyde, and Graham Jost. So it was the Olympic team plus a few other, Donnie Wilson, who'd been in the Olympics before, and a few others, Tommy Maloney, who was living in England, and a few, Tony Branchflower, and different guys rode different races, but we went over there and we raced the whole season in Europe, and he organised it all. Patricia Liggett was Ronnie Webb's PA lady or right-hand lady. And that's when I first met Trish. But it was just an amazing year. So we went to the huge races, the Peace Race and Tour of Austria, Tour of Switzerland, and right through the season, right through the World Championships. And that was, so just touch a little bit on that. We'll go through some of the amazing events because Donnie's very modest. He's not like me. So we'll have to twist his arm to get some of these results out of him. But that were amazing. And that really set you up for your pro career. But what are your thoughts on that year that we had together?
Oh, yeah, I'd agree. That's fantastic. And it's just something you couldn't buy. I know Ron Webb said to Tom Maloney, I think, look, Tom said there's a few riders coming over. He said, if you get enough together, form a team, he said, I'll arrange all the races. And we got paid. We'd fly to one place and the next town, the next country would pay us to go there. So we got 3 trips all around Europe and met Del Shannon down in Switzerland. And yeah, it was fantastic, life-changing. And through that, I got a pro contract, some of my results there. So it's just amazing.
I'll touch on that because so we rode the Peace Race, the Peace Race was virtually the amateur Tour de France. It was the biggest race for amateurs. It was more than 2 weeks. I think it was even 16 days, a bit over 2 weeks long. And back then you had amateurs and pros were separate. Like the under 23s is what you call the amateurs of today. But you also had the Eastern Bloc. So you had the Russians, the East Germans, the Czechs. They were professionals. They were in the army and they were seriously good bike riders. So getting thrown in the deep end with those, the Poles as well. So there might have been, I can't remember, 140, 150 riders. There was the Poms and Belgies and French and us. But it was the Eastern Bloc countries that were so strong. But Donnie, you won a stage on the Cinder track and you beat 2 of the best amateurs in the world. One was being world champion, I think, the year before, to win that. So just take us through that stage. It was very similar to your Vuelta stage when in that it was on the Cinder track.
Yeah, it was. I think they were in a break. There was 20 of us, were 17. I forget the number now, in a break. And Likachov was there. He ended up winning 6 or 7 stages that year. And I hope he's not listening, but literally he was a thug on a bike.
Yeah.
I don't think he's listening, mate. I think you're pretty safe.
I know Sikorsky's not listening anymore, but anyway. If you were in a wheel, riding in a wheel, and he wanted your wheel, he would just displace you. He'd literally just move you off. And if you tried to move back, and I'm not frightened of a headbutt here or an elbow, but it was like headbutting a tram. He was solid, really solid. Yeah. And Sikorsky was the same. They were just big, solid, strong boys. So finished on the track. I was in the break, and I thought, once again, the only way to beat these blokes is to come onto that track first. So I remember I attacked, and I saw the 700-metre sign to go. And whether I attacked there or I saw that, and I came onto the track in front and held them off again. So it was a good tactic.
But then there was a Tour of Scotland. You won a stage in the Tour of Scotland where Clyde ended up winning that tour overall. You and I buried ourselves on the last day. We still reckon he didn't pay us, didn't give us enough for that one to help him win. But
nothing. I didn't get it.
Yeah, Clyde, he watches this, so we'll the check will be in the mail. But that first stage, you won and got the yellow jersey, or stage 1 or stage 2, I can't remember. But you got that. And then the win that really sealed it for you, I reckon. Oh no, we'll get there. Was it was 6 days of Den Haag that we rode. It was criteriums and road races that all around the Hague, Den Haag. But the stage that you won was also the prelude to the Tour de France stage. So I think it might have been the opening stage of the Tour de France was in Den Haag, and we raced the race beforehand, and you won that. I reckon that's when the Euro teams really took notice of you. Yeah,
I can remember that. It was a prologue for the Tour de France. It was a time trial. remember that was the first time I saw Teenage Tobacco. He was in that. But yeah, there was a criterion for the amateurs, and I think I beat Klaus Peter Taylor in the sprint. He's a handy bike rider, so
He was.
yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
I,
a few of the Dutchmen saw that. And,
I remember watching it from the side. I would have had an iffy story, of course, where I wasn't in the finish. But I remember there was a bank on the side, so we were watching it and saw you win. And I remember that was sensational. And the other win, which ended up, which is a bit of a tragedy to it, was the final stage of the Tour of Austria. So in the Tour of Austria that we were riding, Josie, Graham Josie, was really close mate of Donny's and mine, was killed by a truck parked in a ridiculous place on a descent in a mountain. And we only found out the night before the final stage, because he was in a critical situation for a couple of days, that he'd passed away. So the whole field rode black armbands, and it was like a Kermesse course around Vienna. And I remember I led you out, but we went real early and you had to go from the last corner, and an absolutely brilliant win. And people would think, they probably gave that to Donny because, Josie had been killed and he was Australian, but that wasn't the case at all. And Donny won that last stage in a great sprint. What do you remember? And it was pouring rain most of the day with tram lines on the course and all of that. It was a rough old day. What do you remember of that one, mate?
yeah, I can remember that. I think we arranged to lead Clyde out, being the fastest, and we wanted him to win the last stage in memory of Josie. And I can remember the tram lines, they weren't even, we didn't cross them at 90 degrees, they were on an angle, and it was teeming wet. And then I remember hitting that corner last again, but you and I are up the front, and the photo of that, you can see the ruffian is about 10 lengths off, so that tactic worked again, being in the corner first and holding it upright.
I remember it was a fairly big circuit. And I remember coming through at the bell. And as you're right, we decided to lead Clyde out. I mean, actually, you at first decided that we'd lead me out, because I punctured and lost a lap. So I could still be in the race, but I couldn't contest the finish. So I said, you said, let's make it Clyde. So we got Clyde in the wheel. We get up to the bell, and Clyde had got a bit lost in the ruck and lost the wheel. And I said, look, he's not there. I said, well, I'll lead you out, Donny. So we're back a bit far. So we jumped that tram line or rail line or whatever down the back straight, and went from about back of the field to the front of the field in one fell swoop. So it was a great move. But it was a fantastic victory for you. But that was just an amazing year. So from that, when did the contract for Frizzol actually happen?
I went back to London after that season finished, and I worked in a bike factory over there, and Dave Watson was there, and we were packing bikes in cardboard boxes, pretty cold and miserable, hadn't seen snow ever before, and I wanted to get back to Amsterdam, the continent. And I'd stayed with Hans Poldermans and his family, who was brother-in-law of Knaterman. He was a masseur and had a little room up in an attic. It was pretty ordinary. But I just wanted to get back there, and I arrived at the customs in Den Haag with a bike and 2 English pounds. No return ticket. I'd sold the ticket. And the customs man, those Dutch are pretty big, and I remember all his lanyards and the uniform and stars. And he said, where's your return ticket? And I said, I haven't got one. Yeah, how much money you got? I said, £2. He said, you're going on the next boat back to England. I said, oh, no, I don't want to go back to England. I said, I've got a family. I want to be a bike rider. He said, not with my money, you're not. So I pleaded with him. I said, look, ring this Poldermans. And so the customs bloke rings Poldermans. And he had to go guarantor for me. So if something happened, they'd pay my airfare. And I had to go and see the strange police or foreign police the next day and get a stamp. And every year after that, I had to get a stamp in my passport. And Clyde was living in Amsterdam at the time, and we were talking, and Hans Poldermans, the Soigneur, said, I'm going to ring Pete Liebrechts. He's starting a team up with Frizzol. And I remember Pete came in the house with Poldermans, and we had eye contact, and he was a great bloke. And he said, I'm going to have him in the team. So that's how it happened. But apparently he'd also asked some of the Dutchmen, Albert Husselbosch, who was in the Friesel team, and he said, I'm thinking of getting this Aussie bloke, Don Allan. What do you think of him? Oh, said Husselbosch, you want to get him? He's pretty strong. We were in a criterion, he said, and it took 4 of us to work him over. They did. They got away, and one of them got away eventually, and I got second. So, I think the Dutch just appreciated the way I rode, and Pete Liebert was a fantastic bloke, and we became best friends. So that's how it started.
Hey, Don, I want to ask you, what are all the key sort of tools and lessons that were left behind from your cycling career that you sort of carried on to your life post all the bike races?
It toughens you up. Things like that. Is that what you mean? Just
yeah.
I had a window cleaning business later, and I could have gone into a bike shop or something, but that wasn't my cup of tea. I love being outdoors. After what you've been through with the tours and riding those pro races in Belgium, there's sort of nothing bothers you anymore. You're pretty resilient. Became friends with Suku, really good friends, and then the Sixers, so were very, very hard too. So it was great life.
Now, we can't just gloss over then the Sixers, because a lot of people won't realise how big the 6-day races were back then. I mean, it was a huge part of the season. Now, cyclocross is bigger, and the Sixers are still going, but they haven't got the same prestige that they had back in your day. There's a great photo we've got up there of you and Danny Clark, Danny throwing you in. And Danny, of course, was a teammate of ours at the Munich Olympics. I remember in the training camp was when we gave the nickname Sunshine. He used to like it when we told him he was from the Sunshine State, Tasmania, but he didn't like it so much when he found out why we really called him Sunshine, but that's another story. Tell us a little bit about that, because you two became quite a famous 6-day team.
Yeah, you're right. In those days, 6-day racing, it wasn't a career if you didn't make it on the road, well, I'll become a 6-day rider. It was a career that ran parallel with road racing in those days. And even before my era, in Graham Gilmore's era, you had some of the 6-day riders were great. Rick Van Looy and Peter Post and Steenberg. And they were great road riders who took on 6-day racing. The same in our area.
Eddie Merckx, some bloke called Eddie Merckx, yeah.
yeah. Eddie someone, yeah. But it was a career that ran parallel. It was, and we were lucky enough in that time to have Didi Turo, the German. He was just so popular, and the German Six was really flourishing at that time. I think we rode 18 Sixes a year, which is a lot. They'd have afternoon sessions and evening, and kids would come in the afternoon, and it's just really big time.
Because they were so big. I was going to say, were they good financially during that period as well, because they were so popular?
Yes, they were. But the trouble is too, you earned that money, but then you had to live the whole year on it. So you did. Not many of the 6-day riders had a contract sponsor. All the good ones did, I suppose, Suku and that. But so you got good prize money and good contracts, but the manager took 10%. You had to pay for the kitchen, your soigneur, the mechanic. So it all ate into it a little bit. It was great life. Enjoyed.
Good stuff.
Now, the other major event that I was lucky enough to be there and witness you do was the World Road Championship in Ostuni. Was it 76? Was it? 70? Yeah, I think it was 76.
Yeah, Ostuni was 76. Yeah.
Yeah, and Freddie Martin's won it, but you finished 9th in that. To finish top 10 in a World Road title was an amazing feat. I think Eddie Merckx was 5th in that. Hino was up in there as well. So just take us through the finale, the last part of that. What were you thinking coming towards the finish of a chance to get top 10 in a World Road Championship?
I wasn't thinking about that. I remember it was a hard day. The course wasn't that hard, but it was very hot and windy. And 4 away at Martins, Moser, Suter Milk and Conti, I think. Yeah. So but there was quite a large bunch coming for 5th place. And it wasn't sort of a sprint where blokes were flipping off a wheel and attacking. It was just a surge for the line. It was 288 kilometres, the race. So Merckx just led the charge, and he told me later that he had a 12 on. He was the first to have a 12 sprocket at the back. Apparently they said to me, try this out. He tried it out all right. He let out, and I think Hino was the only one who got sort of level with him, and Gimondi was there, and Ras, myself, and I think Mike Neal in the top 10. So
yeah, Mike was 10th, yeah.
it was great. If someone said to you, I want a script and I want someone to finish in top 10 with all the best riders in the world, you couldn't get better than that. It was pretty good.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, staggering. And I've got a great photo of Gary Clively and I in the pits, because we're both, I had an iffy story, of course, but Gary and I are both in the pits watching you come by, and I'm wearing your Frizzole top. I must have borrowed it. I'm sure I gave it back though, Donnie.
I don't think I ever got that back. No. A lot of my stuff went missing over the years.
Funny that.
Not see it on eBay now.
Yeah, exactly.
Talking about that ride though in Ascuni, I felt a better ride I did was the year before in Ivoire. I got 23rd, but I finished on the Kite was way on his own. There was the Merckx group and De Vlaeminck. And then there was a group with Gimondi, Verbeek, and Freddie Martins, 10 of us in that, and I finished 23rd last in that, but that was a hard day.
Yeah, sensational.
A harder course than Australia.
Yeah. Look, we could talk for hours, but I really, really got a big thank you for coming on board. I know you hate this sort of stuff. Had to twist your arm, but it's been fantastic to reminisce. To get up the old DeLorean and go back in the past. And I look forward to when this stupid damn pandemic is over, the COVID-19 lockdown, so we can catch up and go for a pedal together, mate. I really look forward to it.
Okay. So thanks for the chance. Hi, Dan.
Well, all I can say, Don, is you couldn't get in the Herald Sun in 1974, but you're on the D2 in 2021, mate. That's more important.
Thank you.
Mate.
Thanks, mate.
Wow, what a legend, Iffy. And you're right. He is the opposite to you. He is so humble. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
We do apologise. We would have loved to have done that live, but we had to pre-record. But we did have a lot of comments coming in. The Skull, great story, this one. Wheel Wizard, great to hear Don Allan. Shame it wasn't live now for Gary Clively.
I spoke to Gary. We're going to have him on next couple of days. Yep.
Nice. Tom Maloney says Don was the standout rider during that 1973 year and inspired a generation of Aussie cyclists to go to Europe. Free Ranger.
Tommy was a part of that team. Yep.
Free Ranger, he's mentioned a couple of times now. I'd be interested to hear from Steve Fairless, especially his take on winning a Masters World title after so many years off the bike. I think Steve's up at Shepparton area as well. And they're obviously,
boy. Yeah.
They're going through a tough time at the moment. So thoughts for those guys at the moment with the COVID lockdown. And Tom Maloney says that final crit stage, Don hit his pedal on the last corner in pouring rain and took a gap to go on and win magnificently. And David says, love hearing from these pioneers of Australian cycling in Europe. And Tom also says, he goes, Don's great friend, Fedor Den Hartog. Rest in peace. The Eddie Merckx of the amateurs during the 70s came out to Australia to stay with Don before he died of prostate cancer a year or so later.
That was a very special trip too, because Fedor Den Hartog was the Eddie Merckx of our amateur days. He was an amazing cyclist and close friend of Don's. And Don, he came out and was a guest at one of our Mayo-Jean lunches at Moonee Valley, actually, and got up and spoke. And what a legend, real character. It was a special moment. And he died, I think, within 12 months of that.
And I think what Don was saying is still current today. Like the coverage that cycling gets in Australia compared to what it should get, there is a big gap there, Iffy. And it is getting better. Obviously, Cadel Evans had a big effect on that coverage and people wanting to get into cycling more, but it still doesn't feel like it should be where it's at, particularly in places like Melbourne.
No, agreed. I mean, the sport of cycling, or the recreational aspect of cycling, has taken off. More and more people are riding a bike, and most of them are wearing lycra, and they're getting more interested in sport. So I believe that the media has missed something there, missed a chance to get more involved. But, you know, I was going to bring up with Dom, we ended up, we talked for that long. I never got to a couple of parts. But looking back, in our younger days, and Tommy Maloney and all the old guys my age will remember this well, we had an amazing scene in Victoria. We would go to country races, and most weekends, like if it would be every second weekend, there'd be what we call an open. We'd race, say, Bendigo to Charlton. You'd stay overnight. You'd ride the Bendigo at the Charlton crit the next day. So this is what would happen all through the road season. And so it did a couple of things. One, the quality of racing was sensational. And two, you got to know everyone. You were staying in a local town. You probably got thrown out of the pub together at some stage, or maybe that was just me. But it built this camaraderie, this rivalry. So when we did go to Europe, we were actually quite competitive straight away. When I went to Europe first time as a 20-year-old, rode Com Games and stayed on road was it. I was competitive straight away. We rode through the Scottish Milk Race. I was beating the best road sprinters in sprints because we had brilliant competition back here. And they seem to have lost that with their emphasis on the top end, on the elite teams going away to the games. I don't think there's been enough money and programs going into grassroots. So it's something I think they should have a look at. You will never get back to what we had back then because it was something really special. It'd be a different type of program because it was not really a European scene. You didn't progress, go bang, 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 and go to Europe. Even if you got the Olympic Com Games, you normally came back and raced in Australia. But so it's a very different world over there. And all the young kids know now they can be a pro in Europe by the time they're 21, 22. But still, our grassroots setup needs a lot of work.
Well, why don't you think outside the box? Why don't you add like events with other stuff like a blues festival or like barbecue cook-off, or just add layers so that it's like a spectacle, you know? I'm all thinking about food and music. Add that to the mix.
Well, that's to get spectators. That's true. That's great, and that's to get maybe a bit of media attention. But the actual racing side of things, Blues Fest, you don't need. You need really good racing, plenty of it, because they'll all turn up, and multi-day events so that people can come down.
No. You need food, you need music, and the racing can blend into that. Because then I'll come. You gotta sell the sizzle to me, Iffy. Can't just be about the bikes. Now, Philip Russell says, "Welcome to the world's loudest silent auction. Everyone wants to know what's going on with this silent auction. Thanks to the kind generosity of Jason and his team at the Amila Resorts in the Maldives. And before we talk about what it's up to, have you got your script ready?
I have.
Okay. Well, I need to get the video ready. Put me on the spot here. I thought you'd at least give me a sentence.
You put yourself on the spot, but that's good to see.
Okay. Give us a script.
Discover a tropical playground of powdered sugar sand, lush jungle, and crystalline waters. Amila Maldives luxury resort reeks of timeless style and endless bliss. Stand by for unexpected treats and indulgences. Delighting and surprising you is their hallmark. Amila's motto is to exceed your expectations. The sky is the limit.
Bloody perfect, mate. And where are we at with the auction at the moment?
Yes, we're latest one, and it's from a young man from Gippsland. I don't know him, but he sent me an email saying it's from Gippsland with his lovely wife, who's from that part of the world as well. And he said probably a bit out of our league, but we'll give it a go. Typical Valley boy.
Legend.
$4,800.
And that is for, at this stage, 5 nights for 2 adults and 2 children on the Ocean View Resort. And it's breakfast and dinner, but I can guarantee you, if you support this product, Jason and the team will look after you. I can guarantee you that. Now, the other thing that we're going to have Vaughan on from Apex Custom Cycling Gear, and he's going to update what's happening with the Amy Gillett, the Detour. What are we calling ourselves? The delegates, degenerates, the Detour crew. ApexCustomAUS.com, and you can get on and design the kit. Now, I spoke to Katie earlier, and she said, if you want to give a heads up on what will win the prize, because we're giving away entries to the Amy's Grand Fondo, and you can win your own custom design kit. Make them bright. Like if you do a dark kit that goes against what the messages they're trying to get out there, which is be visible, be safe. So be creative, but make it bright, iffy.
Yes. So Vaughan has given an address for people to look onto. So it was
he did, but I thought we'll keep it simple because it's on their main page. So just go to apexcustomaus.com, and it's all there. You can click the links and get all the information. And then Vaughan will be on tomorrow night, and he's got a little promo for us. And we can talk about how the designs are going and get some insights. But, you know, another thing is get your kids to help out. Get your kids to design some kit because they love bright colours and, you know, see what they come up with. Make it a family affair. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Now,
I can remember one time, I used to get the Bay Crits in. We decided with the Bay Crits to have a schools competition. So went to all the local schools, you know, on the Bellarine and Mornington Peninsulas, and all the primary schools, and we gave them a competition to design a poster that epitomised the Bay Classic. And I thought, and we will put that whatever was onto the poster. The youngster who designed it was from a school down the Bellarine. Seriously, it was at the palm trees and the bike rides. It was that good. We didn't just put it. That was the poster. We made it the poster of a young 8-year-old. It was fantastic. So kids are very, very creative. So yeah.
Hang on. I've got some creative inspiration here. The Wheel Wizard has said, food, music, and beer, a Belgian kermesse or a cyclocross race. Free Ranger says, Belgian beer, Belgian chocolate, but no hot chips and mayo. And then Wheel Wizard says, forget the Fritz and mayo. Hang on, John. Hang on. I think it's time for a rebrand. I think you need to go after the Belgian consulate, because obviously cycling's number one sport in Belgium, and make it a Belgium-themed event, the Belgian Bay Classic. Just bring them all together. Celebrate everything that's great about Belgium, and it blends in cycling. Beer, music, Fritz, just go all out. Why not?
I love it.
The Belgian Bay Classic 2022 and beyond. Belgian theme, just celebrate everything Belgian. I think we're onto something here, John. Okay. We are definitely onto something. Now, tomorrow night, what we're going to do is we'll have Vaughan on, we'll have some special guests, and we'll be on at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we're also going to give you some tricks with lockdown. We're going to have a hashtag. We're going to get people involved, but we've got some tricks and some stuff in the toolkit to help you get through lockdown, because we do appreciate the support for the show. And as we said at the top of the show, tell your mates, like, share, subscribe. But we are getting some messages from people supporting the show. Iffy, you got a nice message today from someone?
I did, yeah. I got a lovely call from a guy who tracked my number down and said how he loved the detour and that it helped get him through some dark times with the lockdown. So that was pretty nice to hear. Yeah.
Yep.
Now I can say one of our special guests for tomorrow is a survivor. He is a survivor, although he didn't survive till the end of that show, but Baden Cook is coming on.
Yes.
So we're going to talk. You'll have some wonderful yarns.
Well, we didn't get to talk about Survivor when he was on last time because the show hadn't run yet. And so he's had to be coy. But now we've seen what he did on the show. I can really just go hard. And if you haven't seen the show, get a VPN, get on 10 Play, watch as many eps as you can with Cookie doing his finest work. I thought he was going to win it. But, unfortunately, he got shafted. And the Free Ranger, the BBC, the Belgian Bay Classic. And Skull says, Cook Belgian Blue Stakes. Mate, why didn't you think of this years ago, mate?
Oh, I didn't have you around.
It's all there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, It's rebranded. So, and then you go up the belt. Oh, mate, let's talk off air. This is going to happen. Let's do it. See you tomorrow night, guys. 6:30. Cheers.
Oh.